We got this super interesting chapter, chapter 11, from Carlos Perez's book on artificial empathy.
Conversational empathy, right?
Exactly. So let's unpack what makes us smart, how we understand each other, and what it all means for, AI in the future.
It's funny. Perez kind of flips the script on intelligence. He says smarts aren't just about individual brain power.
Oh, interesting.
It's about cooperation, sharing intentions, and building knowledge together through, conversation. Like, we're hardwired for collaborative learning.
So it's less about lone genius, more about team player.
Exactly.
I like that.
He even points out that infants and chimpanzees learn basic skills in basically the same order, like early on, right? Hinting at some built-in meta-learning algorithm both species share.
Wow.
But here's the thing. Chimps hit a cognitive ceiling around 9 months old.
Really?
Even though they've got better short-term memory and reflexes than us.
Huh.
Think about that. Better memory, better reflexes. Still not getting to our level of, abstract thought.
So we're saying language is like a superpower.
It's a pretty powerful tool, but here's where Perez really gets me thinking. He's like, what does it even mean to understand something? He uses these examples of super complex mathematical proofs, a computer-generated, technically correct, but impossible for us to get intuitively.
Yeah.
Our brains just aren't wired for that level of abstraction.
So, if conversation's so powerful, how do we even know when we understand something?
Right.
Is it explaining it perfectly, or is there more to it?
That's the question.
Yeah.
And Perez doesn't shy away from it. He argues that empathy, which we think of as purely emotional, is actually core to how we learn and understand.
Wait, hold on. Empathy. That's about feelings, right?
Yeah.
How does that tie into understanding complex ideas?
Think about it this way.
Okay.
To really get something, you need to see it from different perspectives,
Yeah.
connect it to your experiences, even anticipate how others might react. That's empathy at work.
Okay, starting to see the connection. So it's not just about, cold, hard logic.
Right.
But also being able to relate on a, deeper level.
You got it. And Perez takes it even further. He says true understanding comes from the interaction of, diverse minds within a linguistic culture.
Linguistic culture.
It's like how scientific knowledge builds over generations, right? It's not one person inventing everything. It's shared conversation.
So individual smarts kind of amplified when we're part of this bigger conversation, like collective intelligence greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly.
But how does this linguistic culture relate to AI?
That's a great question. It leads us to this really fascinating thing Perez proposes, the Quaternion process theory. Could be the key to AI that really understands.
Right, spill the beans. What's this Quaternion process theory all about?
Remember thinking fast and slow?
Yeah, of course.
Perez adds another layer. He argues that both intuitive and deliberate thinking can be divided into two distinct types, each linked to what our left and right brain hemispheres do.
Okay.
Hence Quaternion. 4 interconnected modes of thought.
Hold on. 4 modes. So it's not just fast versus slow, but how those processes are different in our left and right brains.
It's like having this team of specialists working on every thought. And Perez believes understanding these 4 modes is, crucial for building more adaptable AI. Instead of cramming all of intelligence into a single algorithm, we create systems that use these different modes.
Interesting. But before we get ahead of ourselves, break down these 4 modes. What are they, and how do they, work together?
Okay, empathic unconscious.
Empathic unconscious.
Think gut feelings. Those instant knowing moments.
Okay.
Coming from nowhere, right? It's your right brain tapping into this massive network of associations and experiences, making sense of things holistically, intuitively.
Like when you meet someone new and you instantly get a good or bad vibe. No logic, just intuition.
Exactly. Now, shift to the left hemisphere. We find Fluent Unconscious.
Fluent Unconscious.
This is where procedures, routines, well-learned skills hang out, like typing or riding a bike.
Oh, yeah.
You don't even think about it.
Like making my grandma's pasta sauce.
Yeah.
Done it so many times, practically muscle memory at this point.
Precisely, mental autopilot.
Yeah.
But Perez is saying we need both intuitive and deliberate thinking for real understanding, right?
Okay, makes sense. So what about the conscious modes? What's happening when we're actively thinking things through?
Well, on the left, we've got Fluent Conscious. This is language, logic, analytical thinking. The voice in your head, crafting that email, solving a Sudoku,
right,
planning your next chess move.
Got it. That's my inner editor making sure I don't mess things up. But what about the right brain's conscious mode? What's going on over there?
That's empathic conscious. Deep reflection, emotional intelligence.
Okay.
Navigating those tricky social situations. It's about stepping back, seeing the bigger picture through emotions, values, relationships.
So this is me figuring out why a friend's upset.
Exactly.
Or like how to approach a delicate situation at work.
You're using empathy, understanding social cues. Now here's the cool part. Perez says all these modes are essential, and AI needs them to reach human-level intelligence.
Okay, seeing the bigger picture now.
Yeah.
But how do they work together? Like, is it a relay race, passing the baton?
It's more like an orchestra.
An orchestra.
Different sections, different roles, but harmonizing, creating this beautiful, complex piece.
Right.
Each mode adds its strengths to how we understand the world. For example, empathic unconscious, gut feeling about something. Then fluent conscious kicks in to analyze, make a plan.
Wow. So it's this interplay between, like, intuition, logic, emotion, experience that makes us intelligent.
It is, and it gets more interesting. Perez connects this back to linguistic culture. He argues that this conversational back and forth, sharing ideas, perspectives, shapes our individual selves.
Wait, conversations create our identities?
Think about it. From birth, we're interacting, observing, reacting, absorbing information, having this, like, metaphorical conversation with our environment.
So a baby learns crying, gets them attention.
Right.
Or that a certain sound means food. Those early interactions are like mini conversations, shaping their understanding.
Exactly. And as we grow, these conversations get more complex. We start using language, share ideas, engage in these dances of dialogue that shape, our beliefs, values, our sense of self.
So every conversation leaves a mark, shaping us over time.
It does. And Perez points out this isn't just one-on-one, it's groups, communities, even cultures. We absorb ideas, values, norms, further shaping ourselves.
Constant dance between our inner world and the world around us, shaping who we become. But if our selves are shaped by conversations, does that mean our brains are wired for this collective intelligence?
That's what Perez suggests, and this is where it gets mind-bending. He draws this parallel between how neurons are organized in the brain and communication in societies. He's proposing they're constantly interacting, exchanging signals, forming patterns that represent knowledge. Like each neuron is this tiny agent contributing to a larger intelligence.
So our brain isn't a single thing, but like a city of neurons all communicating.
Fantastic analogy. And like a city, different groups, different roles. Perez suggests different brain parts evolve to handle different cognition aspects.
This is all so fascinating, but my brain is getting overloaded. We've covered conversations, selves, neurons, collective intelligence. But how does this tie back to empathy?
Remember how Perez said empathy is fundamental?
Yeah.
Not just an emotion. He believes our brains have dedicated empathy machines for understanding others' intentions, emotions.
A part of our brain that lets us step into someone else's shoes.
Exactly. And he suggests they're not just for understanding humans. They also play a role in how we interact with, the physical world, anticipating how objects behave, learning.
It's like our brains are constantly running simulations, trying to predict what will happen next based on our experiences and understanding of the world.
Precisely. And Perez takes it further, arguing that AI needs similar empathy machines for true intelligence. Without understanding and anticipating intentions, AI will always be limited in interacting with the world.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. But how do we go from understanding empathy in the brain to building empathy machines for AI? That sounds incredibly complex.
It's a huge challenge, and it's what Perez digs into throughout his book. But before the nitty-gritty of building artificial empathy, let's appreciate the implications of his work.
You're right. We've been so focused on the details, we haven't talked big picture. What does all this mean for understanding intelligence?
It's not just processing power or algorithms. It's about learning, adapting, solving problems in a complex world. And crucially, he believes this ability comes from the interaction of diverse minds within a shared cultural context.
So it's not just individual smarts, but the wisdom that arises from communication, collaboration, ideas.
You got it. If we want to create truly intelligent AI, we need to move beyond focusing on individual agents.
Okay.
Start thinking about systems that learn and evolve as part of a larger, interconnected whole.
So we need to stop trying to build superhuman AI and start thinking about super collaborative AI.
Exactly. AI that works with us complements our strength.
To solve the challenges we face.
Exactly. And to do that, we need to understand what makes human intelligence tick. Empathy, communication, collective learning.
We have. But before we wrap up, anything else Perez throws in that we haven't touched on yet?
There's this one final piece. I think it's relevant to our discussion. He calls it
Record.
the extended mind hypothesis.
Oh, extended mind hypothesis. What's that all about?
It challenges this idea that the mind is just the brain. Perez, along with some philosophers, cognitive scientists, they propose that our minds extend beyond our skulls. They incorporate our environment, tools, even other people.
You're saying my mind isn't just in my head, but extends outward.
Exactly. Think about it. Smartphone for appointments, GPS for navigation, calculator for complex calculations.
Yeah.
These tools become extensions of your cognitive abilities.
Okay, I see that. But how does this extended mind thing relate to conversational empathy, collective intelligence?
Here's where it gets interesting. Perez argues that language itself is a tool for extending our minds.
Okay.
When we talk, we're not just sharing information, we're expanding our horizons, tapping into the knowledge, experiences, perspectives of others.
Like borrowing other people's brains.
It is, and it highlights the power of collective intelligence. Working together, sharing ideas, building on each other's knowledge, we achieve more than we could alone.
This is all so fascinating, but my brain has officially reached its limit. We've covered 4 modes of thinking, conversations shaping identities, the extended mind. I need time to process.
I hear you, it's a lot to take in. But think about these ideas, how they apply to your own life, your interactions.
You're right. So for our listeners, what's the key takeaway?
I think it's to appreciate your own intelligence. It's multifaceted. You're not just a logical machine. You've got empathy, intuition, creative problem solving, embrace conversations, seek diverse perspectives, never stop learning.
Inspiring message.
Yeah.
Highlights the potential for humans and AI working together, right? Using our strengths to create something amazing.
Absolutely.
We were talking about the extended mind hypothesis, the idea that our minds aren't just in our heads.
They kind of reach out.
Yeah, they reach out into the world using tools, even other people, to boost our thinking abilities.
It is a pretty wild concept when you really think about it. Makes you question where the self ends.
It really makes you appreciate collaboration, doesn't it? Like, we're not just exchanging info when we talk.
Right.
We're sharing mental resources.
Exactly. And this ties back perfectly to what Perez was saying about conversational empathy and language. Remember those empathy machines? The neural networks that help us get other people's intentions, their emotions?
Yeah.
Well, language is like a highway for those empathy machines. That's the idea. When we chat, we're not just passively absorbing info. We're trying to understand the other person, their perspective, emotions, intentions. And that active listening, that perspective taking, it's like a workout for empathy.
So every deep conversation, it's an empathy workout. I guess that's why I feel drained after a good heart-to-heart.
Haha, there's a cognitive cost to empathy, for sure. But it's worth it. It lets us connect, build trust, understanding, ultimately a more compassionate world.
Right. Okay, I'm with you on conversational empathy being a superpower. But I'm still stuck on those empathy machines in AI. Can we really build them into AI? Is that even possible?
It's a huge challenge, maybe the biggest challenge for AI right now. But Perez thinks it's not just possible, but essential if we want AI that can actually coexist with humans.
And collaborate, right.
So where do we even start with building artificial empathy? Our brains are so complex. Empathy involves tons of neural pathways, processes. It's daunting.
It starts with understanding how human empathy works.
Okay.
And that's what Perez's book is all about. He looks at everything. Mirror neurons, shared intentionality, emotional contagion. It's all in there.
It sounds massive. We're still figuring out our own brains, let alone building artificial ones.
Long-term goal, for sure. But there's some cool research happening. For example, some researchers are using these deep learning algorithms
to train AI to recognize and respond to emotions based on like facial expressions, body language, tone of voice.
So AI that can tell if you're happy, sad, angry just by looking at you.
Exactly. And that's just the start. Some are working on AI that can get sarcasm, humor, even empathy itself.
Wow. Sounds like we're close to AI that truly understands us. But this whole deep dive has really changed how I think about conversation, empathy, and how we understand ourselves, each other, the world.
Me too. This has been fascinating.
And to our listeners, we hope this has made you think about having those deeper conversations, growing your empathy skills, and questioning how AI will shape our future. It's a big one.
Remember, the future isn't something that just happens. We create it through our choices, our actions, and, yeah, the conversations we have.